In this video, I want to talk about 5 tips for beginners to master your manual focus. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. What is up? Welcome back. Pete here. What is going on, y'all? My name is Pete Gottschalk, content producer at Major League Baseball. I've been a videographer since about 2016, so 7-8 years now. I worked at University of Georgia, I worked at DC United, and now I've worked at Major League Baseball for 5 seasons. And I have been shooting video and doing various things throughout those years, and I learned on manual focus. And I'm very grateful that I did, and I wanted to talk about 5 things that really helped me get better when I was a beginner, when I was first starting out, because I know a lot of people learn on autofocus these days. A lot of people shoot on autofocus. But to be frank, if you want to get to the highest of the high in videography, if you want to shoot short films or work for NFL films or be high up in the industry as a videographer or filmmaker, whatever, you need to know manual focus. It's just a professional standard once you get up there, and it will help you improve your shots ultimately. So the quicker you pick it up, the better it'll be, and the easier it is to learn something right when you're at the beginning. That's what we're going to talk about today, how to improve your manual focus. My first tip for y'all is to use peaking. If you're not familiar with peaking, when turned on, it creates kind of like these lines around what is in focus and what isn't. It's hard to explain, but I'm gonna pop up an image here of what it looks like. As you roll focus, the things that are in focus are gonna have more lines and more color on them, and you'll be able to see kind of what's more in focus rather than not having it. Because on a small little monitor or a small little screen on a camera, sometimes it is easy to misfocus, especially on tight details like eyes and stuff. Most modern cameras have it now. I know a couple years ago when I first started, it was kind of spotty. Some had it, some didn't, but most do, I think, now. You can change the color. I personally do like a yellow. I shoot the Braves a lot and they have red. So if I use red, it's kind of harder to see. But peaking is definitely my most helpful tip that I would say helped improve my focus, manual focus at the beginning. So if you don't have that on, flick that on, it'll help. Number 2 is focus magnification. And this is something that is pretty self-explanatory. Before your shot, before the play, if you're shooting sports, you can punch in and see what's in focus, and you can keep rolling your focus just so you're able to see what is in focus easier, especially like I said, if you're shooting on a monitor that is relatively small or just your camera's built in, it's gonna be hard to see subjects that are kind of further away or maybe a little smaller. So punching in is definitely a helpful thing that I did. For example, when I shot football at Georgia, I would have like a function to punch in. I would program one of the custom buttons or custom keys on my camera. I could punch in before the play, get the quarterback in focus, and then punch back out with that same button. Something I do even now. And if you're shooting like an interview on a tripod or whatnot, you can punch in before and on the eyes or the face and make sure that person is in tack focus. This is just something that I've utilized over the years with peaking, and those 2 things paired together, especially when you kind of custom key them on your camera, works really well. My third tip is to up your f-stop or lower your aperture. I'm still confused by that after 8 years. Is it lower or raise? I don't know. But basically make the f-stop number go up. If you are a beginner, you might not be familiar with this, but the lower your f-stop, the blurrier the background's gonna be, which means the less that's in focus, if that makes sense. So if you're zoomed way in on a 7200 on a f2.8, you're gonna get a really shallow depth of field, and that's really cool. That's the look we always want for the most part. But when you're first starting out, it's gonna be really hard to rack focus, especially on those f-stops lower than like 2.8. If you're on a prime lens on a 51.4 or something, it's gonna be really hard, and it's gonna be also really easy to like barely miss focus. So if you raise your f-stop to like, an f4, it's gonna be a lot easier to keep things in focus, especially if it's a quick moving subject. If you're shooting a football player coming right at you or a basketball player coming right at you, raise your f-stop up to f4 if you're shooting manual focus or trying to practice. I still do this to this day if I know it's like a high pressure situation and I want something guaranteed in focus, or if I'm on a gimbal per se. This is just something that will allow you to kind of ease into practicing manual focus. And if you want to err on the safe side when you're getting a shot, definitely up your f-stop because more will be in focus. My 4th tip for y'all as beginners to improve your manual focus is to shoot on a monopod or tripod. If you're not a beginner, this might sound pretty obvious, but working handheld and then also racking focus, especially at the beginning, is a very hard task. It's just a hard thing to do even now, especially if you're like getting low to the ground or if you're not in a very athletic position to get a shot. As nerdy as that sounded, sometimes you're gonna be shooting in tight spaces, awkward angles. Going on a monopod or a tripod will definitely help with this. especially if you're new and you're trying to practice all the things that go into getting a good shot, like your composition, keeping it steady, and of course, racking your focus. This is especially helpful on longer lenses like a 7200, 200-4, or like, a 135. If you are on a longer lens, I highly recommend shooting on a monopod or tripod regardless of if you're doing manual focus or auto. When you're trying to shoot on a 7200 and then also racking focus, if you're new to this game, it's going to be very hard. It's something that I don't even do that often. So using a monopod or a tripod when you're practicing your manual focus or just getting into this will definitely help you in a numerous amount of ways. And my 5th tip for beginners to help improve your manual focus is just to practice. Dive right into it. It's going to feel weird at first. It's going to feel awkward, because when you shoot on a phone, or maybe you've been shooting on autofocus, you're not used to racking focus. It's another thing that you have to control in camera. When you're shooting, you're worrying about your composition, your exposure, your white balance, and so many different things. So manual focus might sound like a chore to add another variable, but I promise you, the more you practice it, the more it'll just become second nature in your brain. Once you get familiar with your lenses and which direction to rack your focus in and out, it becomes way easier. And once you implement all the previous tips that I've taught y'all, it just becomes second nature. Like I said at the beginning of the video, the earlier you kind of implement all these things and start doing manual focus, the easier it is going to come to you later on. My final tip is just to practice. Dive right in. Don't be scared. It's kind of like when you start your journey on photography or videography, whatever it be, you just got to do it. Hopefully I was able to give y'all some insightful tips. I wish y'all luck on your journey, whether it's you want to be a filmmaker or a videographer, or you want to do sports videography, whatever it be, I don't care. I hope these tips were able to help y'all improve your manual focus or encourage you to at least try and start doing it. But anyway, thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see y'all in the next video.